conflict, confrontation, drama. Why does business have to be so hard? Well, the good news is it doesn't. Imagine if conflict was a good thing. Imagine if it could propel you forward. Now, imagine if you could just literally interact and converse with anyone in your business and get the outcome that you want, because that's where we're going today. We've got the author of How to Beat, you ready for this, Bedlam in the Boardroom and Boredom in the Bedroom. We're bringing out the big gun. Her name is Jane Gunn. Let's welcome her to your screen.
Hi, James.
Hello. Well, first and foremost, boredom in the bedroom. Can we get that one covered first, Jane?
Yeah, that one covered. Everybody who sees the title says, can we just flip to the back of the book? Can we do the second half first? Okay. The reason it's got that title is because every conflict you have at work spills over into your home life. Every conflict you have at home spills over into your work life. And more than ever, those two are enmeshed. And it's the same skill set. It doesn't matter whether you're at home, whether you're at work, whether you're in politics, whether you're on the global stage, the principles for resolving conflict are exactly the same.
It's so true, actually, what you said there about it spilling over. You know, I've speak with loads of business owners and coach loads of people, and I'm a human being myself, you know. Can you really not take the things home with you? Is it possible?
Not really. And if you're looking at who is a stakeholder in my business, whoever you live with at home, your other half at home is a stakeholder in your business. They should be seen as a stakeholder in your business because they are impacted by what goes on at work, and work is impacted by them. So regard your home life as a stakeholder in your business as well.
Well, we're talking about the magic of conflict, and I think we've got a slide that we're putting up first, which is a really nice picture, which I'm told that you even drew yourself.
I designed it. I actually got it, finished off by someone else. So I have a cartoonist who works with me, but I did design the whole picture. Yes, James, I did.
Why is it magic then? Why is conflict magic?
So a couple of things I want to say here. First, is that if you imagine that you've got a garden, this is a whole landscape. Imagine you've got a garden though, and you don't water it. If you don't water it, it's arid and dry. We had a very dry summer, nothing grows. So if you imagine conflict's a little bit like water, you don't have any conflict, you're going to have a very boring business, if you like. If you've got too much water, you're just going to flood the whole thing. So we know that it's going to rain, for example. So we have ways of catching that water and using it effectively. We catch it early and we channel it. And that's what I want encourage people to think about conflict like. It's a resource for your business. It can be a catalyst to growth, because you can see new ways of doing things, but only if you catch it early and then channel it in the right direction. So we're going to look at how to do that today. And then this map really represents the journey that I take everybody on when they're trying to resolve a conflict or understand conflict in their own lives or in their businesses. And it starts off down in the left there with a storm or the risk of a storm. And you can see that sometimes you can be completely uprooted by that. And where most of my clients get stuck is in this muddy bog. They've got too much water. They're stuck in the murky swamp of reality, I call it.
That's just outside of the start then. You get stuck basically right at the start.
Get stuck right at the start, and many people spend their entire time. And if I ask my clients sometimes, how long is this situation, a situation they define as a conflict or something that's holding them back, how long has that been going on? It could be 3 years, 5 years. People sit in that conflict for a very long time without knowing how to get out, to climb out of the bog.
I wonder what impact that has on burnout, by the way.
Huge. It has a huge impact. And I think what I see a lot in my work is people going out off now on sick leave. They just go off on long-term sick leave. So they are stressed out, burnt out by the situation. They're not finding any relief. So they just have to take time out.
Well, look, we've got tigers, we've got dragons, we've got bombs. we're losing the high heels on the way in.
You're
On the
losing
way
the high
out,
heels.
yeah. Well, I can see they're throwing shoes. Is that what it says? No, the wrong shoes.
The wrong shoes. We wear the wrong shoes. We have the wrong shoes on for the journey.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? We put the wrong shoes on to deal with this.
Yep, got the wrong shoes on. You've got too much. You're carrying too much in your backpack. You've got the too much baggage. You're carrying your own baggage, other people's baggage. You've got the dragon of doubt over there, sitting on your back.
What's the strangest conflict that you've seen in business?
Oh, what an interesting question. The strangest one. Oh, I can't really think what the strangest one would be.
What's the worst one? What's the worst thing that you've seen?
I think the worst ones are actually family businesses. You know, we're talking about this crossover, but when you think about, you know, a family business, for example, where literally your work and your life are involved, and it's very, very sad when the family gets divided by the business.
You know what? As soon as you said that there, Jane, it was like, that was an instant sort of epiphany, really. Family business. That's where it gets challenging.
Yeah.
There's going to be family businesses that are watching this, and you're definitely going to be getting something from this as well.
And I think entrepreneurial relationships, you know, more than ever, people start up businesses. They have done during the last 3 years. You get what I call kitchen table conversations that go on. People who are friends start up business, go, oh, you know, we're great friends. Yeah. We know each other. We love each other. We'll never fall out. So let's start a business. And then there again, they don't have the right conversations. So they get stuck in that bog very, very quickly.
They don't have the right conversations. How much of this is about having the right conversation then?
It's all about the right conversation. I think business is a series of conversations. We think about it in terms of contracts often. You know, have I got a contract with my supplier, my provider? Have I got employment contracts? But what about the conversations? What conversations should sit around those contracts? What are our expectations? It's all about how we're not expressing ourselves properly. We're not being clear about what we expect of each other, what we expect of ourselves. So
it's all about the conversations. It's all about expressing yourself properly, being clear. That's what you're saying, yeah?
Yeah, I have 2 mantras. Whatever is unspoken is hardest to change. And we speak least about the things that matter most.
Whoa, capture this. Whatever is unspoken is the hardest thing to change.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
Is that a Jane Gunn quote?
I don't know where I got it from, but it's one that I use as my mantra. Whatever is unspoken is hardest to change, and we speak least about the things that matter most.
Oh, if that's you, we want to hear from you. Feel free to share any of your conflicts, any of your challenges, any of the hardest things that you've got to verbalize and speak about. Feel free to share them, and we will elaborate on them at our end. Where are we going next then? Let's have a look at this because we've got this right at the top of the mountain, because over here on your first slide, map of experience, we've got the mountain over there. Now we're looking right at the top. What's this about?
Well, you know, every time when I'm dealing with clients who are in conflict, I say to them, what outcome do you want to achieve? And they look at me blankly and think, I've never thought about where I'm going with this. I've only thought that I'm struggling with this, and also that I want to be proved right. But actually, you've got to think, where are we trying to do? We're trying to get to, I call this the mountaintop of experience. And I've put there expansive, not inclusive, not exclusive, because it's about when you get higher up, when you've got a higher level of thinking, when you've got a higher view, you see more and you can see more expansively. I can see where you're coming from, for example, as well as where I'm coming from. I can see how this impacts the business as a whole over time, for example. You've just got a wider viewpoint.
You know, taking yourself to that point, though, is really important, yeah, in dealing with conflict, because what you said was, I want to be proven right. How common is that?
Oh, it's what we all feel. I mean, all of us have our own ego, don't we? And when we're in conflict, we very, very quickly get drawn into that sense of, but I'm right. And, you know, where I'm going to in my job as a mediator, because I'm a lawyer by training, which is all about proving who's right or wrong. And so mediation is about leaving that behind. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It's where are you trying to get to and how can you get there together? And that's more important than whether you're right or you're wrong.
So the moral of the story is go through the boggy grounds.
Let's go through the bog.
Get away from the tigers, get away from the dragons, get the right shoes on, get yourself to the top of the mountain as soon as you can.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because up there you'll see things clearer. And you know, what about this letting go of the need to be right? Is there anything in that?
Yeah, I've got a brilliant verse somewhere, which is whether it's wrong to be right or it's right to be wrong. You know, again, like conflict, being wrong, being right is often about looking backwards. It's about relying on past information, whereas about being wrong is being prepared to understand new information, being prepared to take new information on board and not just sticking with the past. So I think, again, it's the magic of being wrong, if you like.
That whole point, though, being open to taking new information on board that's a mindset as much as anything else, isn't it?
Yeah, we get stuck in our own rightness, but you know, that is being stuck in a very often I'm looking at people being stuck in a bubble or stuck in a cage. You know, we're there and we can't see beyond the bars of our own thinking.
Well, look, we've got another picture. You've drawn another picture for us next. So look, we expansive at the top. Let's get some clarity here. Let's get out of our own way. Let's add this to screen. All right. Changing conflict interaction. They're all against me. Strong constructive response, weak self-absorbed. Where are we going with this one?
So this is about, so every conflict is about the conversation that didn't happen or didn't happen well. And it's about the interaction that's happening in the moment. Conflict is a process, actually, and it's the process by which we express our unhappiness with the situation or with another person or with several people. And where we tend to get stuck is in that bubble there or cage that I'm talking about. Our sense is actually, although we might be experienced as being bullying and aggressive, is actually that we feel weak and self-absorbed. We're totally absorbed with this sense of I need to be right.
Yes.
And actually we're feeling rather weak. And so the way we then behave is destructive, alienating, and demonizing. So demonizing is you literally treat someone else as though they're not very human. you demonize them. Whereas what we're seeking to do in the work that I do is shift to the other side, even in incremental shifts, so that actually the interaction itself is stronger and more constructive. The person feels stronger. You can see that person feels stronger. And then the interaction can be more connecting, humanizing, and responsive. That means when you're responsive, I can hear what you're saying. I can listen to you. I can accept that you have a point as well as I have a point. I'm not shut in that cage saying, I'm right and don't tell me anything else.
Well, look, Kirsty's put it there. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. That's the lesson that we need to learn. I was thinking defensive there, that alienating and demonizing position that we all get in, because conflict is real. Yeah. What did you say? You said it's all about the conversation or the conversation that either happened or didn't happen.
Yeah. Conflict is a conversation that didn't happen or didn't happen well.
Oh, so conflict is about a conversation that didn't happen or didn't happen well. True. That is so common. I'm thinking to myself, sometimes I've not actually had the conversation, and that's why there's conflict.
Yeah.
Putting myself in the other person's shoes, that's frustrating, isn't it? When someone does come and communicate with you.
And this is happening to us all day long, and we're in such a rush and we're busy to get to work, to get through our meetings and so on. We're forgetting about the conversations.
Yeah, it's back to that unspoken word. Andrew de Groot said it as well. Whatever's unspoken is the hardest to change. We speak about least about the things that matter most. And the conversation that you didn't have, I wonder what percentage of conflict is from conversations that have happened or didn't happen.
I would think the majority are. And that's why it's important to catch them early. You know, did we misunderstand each other? Did we misinterpret the information? You know, sometimes we can hear someone, we can get the words, but what was the meaning in the words? Did I understand the message you were trying to tell me? Did I understand what you were trying to say? And we don't.
What's the key then to being strong and constructive and responsive? What's the real key there?
Do you know, there's one real key here, and it's listening, being prepared to listen to the other person. We're always trying to tell our story and prove why we're right. You know, I've got all this evidence and I've got, you know, this is why I'm right. I've got all these facts and data, but where are you coming from? Let me hear your story.
I was at a conference once and there was a gentleman, Dr. Martin Newman. He was speaking about emotional intelligence and leadership in the workplace. And he said something really powerful, and you've just kind of affirmed it a second ago. He says, the biggest skill in the world to reduce resistance in any walk of life is listening.
It is listening.
And really powerful. You've just said it again there. I mean, the key to dealing with conflict and confrontation is listening. Really powerful.
And I've got we don't need to go back to it, but on the corner of my little map, I've got my 4 values for my business and for media: listen, learn, love, and laugh.
Let's get it. Let's get it. There we go. Listen, learn, love, and laugh. Yeah, bottom right hand corner there. You know, zoom in on the screen next to the tiger. Hey, that's in between the tiger and the dragon.
There you go.
Yeah. You know, be careful down there. Be careful down there.
Yeah.
I think we've got a statement that's coming on screen next. Let's have a look. A conversation that didn't happen or didn't happen well. So you've already said that. Nip it in the bud before it escalates, Julian Week says.
Quite right.
We're going to be talking about an escalator.
We are.
I don't know when, but we're going to be talking about it because we've got this to talk about next. Denial.
Okay, so 3 things we tend to do, and I often do a survey with my clients when I'm working with them. We deny danger. So there's denial. That's Maurice the Mole, by the way. He appears in all my books and on all my slides, Maurice the Mole. But we deny danger. Disbelief prevails over reality. So the next slide is about that. So we don't believe what's happening to us. It's kind of like, no, I don't believe that. So I don't want to rock the boat. So we go from denial, deny danger, disbelief, don't want to rock the boat. And then we don't have any plan. I have got no plan for how to manage conflict. There is no process. Most organizations have got HR processes, which really means I fill up my little black book, if you like, with as many incidences that will finally lead up to a grievance, and then I lodge one. But they don't have a plan for avoiding the adversarial process, the adversarial HR and grievance processes.
Really powerful. So denial, not wanting to rock the boat, not having a plan. I suppose denial, procrastination, like putting it off, I'll deal with that next week. Is that a form of denial?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because that is seriously common.
Yeah.
I know I do it.
Yeah. And when you're busy and when you don't know what the response you'll get from someone else, it's much easier not to have the conversation, not to deal with something today, have it tomorrow, deal with it next week. Why wouldn't you? It's really, again, we're humans. That's our default position, is to put things off and think, well, that's challenging. It's difficult. It's tough. I don't want to do it, really,
But I think what you're also making us experience and acknowledge right now is the other person. When you don't have that conversation, that's causing the conflict.
Yeah.
You've not communicated. So, it's not being said, or it's not being said well. Very powerful. Keep your comments coming in, team. Where should we go next from this then? Because we've got denial.
Yeah.
We've got don't rock the boat, and we've got a lack of a plan.
Lack of a plan. Yeah. So I'm gonna give you a very basic plan. We're going to talk about red button resolution. So we've talked about, Yeah, we're going to go to the escalator.
All right, let's go to the escalator then. This is
conflict, a bit like, you know, if you're in the department store, I don't know if you've ever tried running up an escalator that's going down. It's very hard, isn't it? You know, conflict.
It's fun though, isn't it?
It's fun though, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I seem to remember it being fun. I mean, maybe it's just childish. Maybe it's just childish behaviour.
Well, why not? I think we should do these things. But anyway, perhaps, you know, I'm not encouraging everybody to go home and run up the escalator, but it is fun. But if you imagine that conflict is actually like an escalator going down into the basement, and we're going to have a look in a minute at where you end up into the abyss at the bottom. But these are it's a process. This is a process that your conflict will go through unless you can press the red button at the bottom of the escalator and say, stop, we need to stop. And we need to de-escalate.
So this is what I will go through. Let's say this is a natural course. Number one, we'll stop talking.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say form groups?
So form groups, you go and find people who support your story. So you tell your story to people, and you know, you maybe go off and find another colleague, or you go home and tell your partner, or you tell some friends, or you go down the pub and you say, gosh, this is what's happening. And you expect them to support your story. And of course, the other person or people are doing exactly the same. So then you're forming groups. And it might be that you go to an HR professional or a lawyer, and then you've got somebody who's, you know, really, you know, a formal head of that group. And then those groups create the stories. So the stories just get embroidered. Now, I'm a lawyer by training. Every single legal case has got two sides to it. And you've got two highly trained lawyers on both sides who see and support different stories and are able to create legal documentation that support those opposing stories. So that's a really, really powerful step, is where we create and document those stories.
I suppose it is all about saving face, though. That's creating the story as well, isn't it? I mean, ego and wanting to be proved to be correct.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier on, that's to do with saving face, which is coming down later on the downward escalator.
Well, it is. So then you can see the next bit, we take threats and actions. So we're going to go through this in a minute and just have a look at some examples of some of these steps. But saving face, very often by the time clients come to me, is more about saving face. It's about how do I reach an outcome that enables me not to be embarrassed, not to look as though I shouldn't have done what I did, believed what I did, and so on. And the final step is into the abyss. Very often, people have invested so much in their story. They may have invested a lot of money in their story, and they don't want to backtrack. So actually, the thought process is, I really don't care if I go down, as long as I take you with me. I don't care if I go down, as long as I take you with me. So into the abyss. And you know, people
emotionally,
yeah,
it's so much sense as you're walking through this. I can see that unfolding for people, and all that saving face and your own emotions and ego that people have got. Seen it.
Yeah. No, we've all seen it. I mean, we've all seen it. I mean, this is the story of partnerships, boardrooms, small businesses, large businesses, the global stage. You know, look what's happening on the global stage right now. You can always see this played out in, you know, in so many different scenarios. And if you look at what's happening in so many of the stories that hit the news, you've only got to open a newspaper or read the news, and you can see all this playing out every single day. But of course, that impacts all of our lives as well.
It does. I mean, what's this? Whatever is unspoken is hardest to change. We speak least about the things that matter more. You've said this a few times now.
Yeah, those are the things we mentioned earlier. But those, I would call those my mantras.
Yeah, and that's the cause of going down the escalator, is it?
Well, the cause of going down the escalator is that you haven't found a way to stop the escalation and to restore the interaction.
Yeah.
So if I come in as a mediator, what I'm doing is helping people to listen, hear each other's stories, and think about what is the outcome they want to achieve. Not are you right or wrong, but what outcome do you want to achieve and how are you going to get there? I mean, very similar to coaching in many ways, but it is very important to think about it in terms of outcomes and what do you need rather than am I right and am I wrong? Because you'll just get stuck there forever.
I mean, you've got this really simple press the red button approach, you know, stop and step. That's it.
That's it.
That's how to deal with it. Stop and then step. Is that right?
Step. Yeah, so you need to stop the escalator. So just imagine it is an escalator in a department store going down. You've got somebody has got to press that red button. And it might take quite a bit of courage to press the red button. So you've got to think about that. You know, who is going to press the red button? And when they do, what next? So that's where...
I don't think... I get they would have taken courage to press the red button before you came on here and taught us about conflict. You know, now you kind of want to press the button when you understand it like you do, yeah? You kind of want to press it and start the interaction.
And press it as early as possible. Press it as early as possible. And then you step. So going back to that original picture we looked at of the interaction, how do you step back into the more effective interaction?
Is that the listening? Is that where the listening is coming in?
Yeah.
Talk, listen. Because step one on the downward escalator was stop talking.
Yep.
So the first step, interaction, start talking again and listening. I'm guessing.
Yeah. So we're going to look at, I've taken 3 of these, I think, in terms of slides coming up, James, 3 of those steps. So yeah, so we might just, we might just ask people who are with us today what their thoughts are. So here we are, people have stopped talking. What might some examples of that look like? What might you be seeing or thinking or feeling that gives you a sense you would be pressing a red button at this stage? What would some warning signs be, for example?
Would that be when you feel like someone's talking about you, or you feel like you crossed the line, or you sense some emotion or apathy that's like someone's, when you're seeing something?
Yeah, so it could be a sense that maybe you've said something wrong and people have cooled off. You know, it could be a sense that there's an issue that's being avoided at meetings. You know, there's a big issue to be talked about, but it keeps being not added to the agenda or put off to the end till you've only got 5 minutes to talk about it. So again, it's about what's not being talked about. What conversations are we avoiding? Are people talking behind each other's back? Did I have any other communications breaking down? You know, are there 2 or more people who really are not getting on very well? People not replying to text messages. There you go, Sarah.
That's a good one, isn't it? Aggression.
Yeah. And it's like, why aggression? Yeah. People not
replying to it. It's amazing how a lot of people read into that though as well, don't they?
Well, that's the other thing to say, that, you know, some of the best exercise we get every day is jumping to conclusions and saying, we do that. We jump to conclusions. So we think, oh, you know, they didn't reply to my text. So we might think, oh, that's rude. So we make assumptions and inferences and judgments based on the interaction we think, the meaning we imply to it, without checking that out. So somebody might not reply to your text message and you might think, well, it's very rude. So the text message you send back might be, you didn't reply to my text message, or whatever words you use. But you can immediately start to escalate the conflict in terms of the wording that you use because of the assumption or judgment that you made, that it was their fault or their attitude was wrong. And then they come back all defensive and off you go down the escalator.
Well, I know you prepared some questions as well for people, haven't you, here? So what conflict are we not having and why? So I wonder if there's anyone bold enough to give us any examples of of conversations that we're not having, and why. I bet a very common one is performance related conversations in business.
Yes. Yeah.
And why do people not do that? Is it the fear of confrontation? Is it the fear of upsetting people?
Yeah, we're very interesting. I had 2 conversations with sort of younger people in their 30s yesterday, and I was asking them this, and there is a sense now, a fear of upsetting people. You know, we're so afraid of not being liked by other people. And I mean, of course, that's a human sense, but I think, you know, we're more than ever sensitive to not saying the right thing, not being liked. And so it's easier not to say something. And how do you phrase something if you've got a difficult, challenging conversation to have with a colleague about their performance? You know, it's how do you phrase that conversation? You've got to start the conversation. You've got to be able to carry it on without them walking out, having a half, you know,
maybe we come back to your listening point.
Mm.
You know, how do you have listen? How do you have that conversation?
Yeah.
Ask them a question, listen, get on, understand.
One of the things I say in terms of having these difficult conversations is always give the power back to the other person at the end of you. So you've got to say something, whatever you've got to say, and then you might say, and what do you think? Or what are your thoughts? Or how are you feeling about that? Rather than what we tend to do is to make sure we've got the point across, we repeat it more than once. And so we tend to come across as nagging or you know, over authoritarian, whereas what you're trying to do is get the conversation going. And so opening it up is a good thing to do. And you know, what was I saying? To sort of tread carefully, be open. And, you know, I might have got something wrong here. What I think I saw, I'm curious to know, you know, just using words that are not too certain that that you're right. I might have got this wrong, but I think you didn't put the report on my desk that I'd asked you for. Have I missed something? Did you send it to me on a different, you know, just, yeah.
There's a couple of comments that are coming in here. I'm just going to mention this. It's Jack here. People avoid difficult confrontational conversations. What is the best way to do this? She's answered a question, by the way, so I'm going to put this up, and then face to face is always better. Exclamation mark. Now, the owner of founder of Action Coach UK, not UK, Action Coach globally, he's called Brad Sugars. He did teach me this. He says, look, anything that's challenging, anything that could be perceived negative, you never communicate that via text or via email. Always, you know, in person, wherever possible, direct interaction. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think, and I think we were also delighted to be able to use this technology. But from my perspective, it doesn't matter whether it's you know, a 2-person meeting or a joint meeting. It's much better face to face. Now, we don't always do that because now we've realized we can communicate with so many people geographically dispersed, if you like. But if you've got something that's challenging, yeah. And, you know, maybe take it out of the office, go have a coffee, go have a walk, you know, I mean, I wrote a blog this week about smoking conversations. Now, smoking conversations to me are about the conversation itself is smoking. It's about a hot topic, a difficult topic,
right,
or it's one that goes deeper than you would normally. It's not superficial. It's a deeper conversation. But you know, where are people having that? They're having them outside the office in the garden, aren't they? And for some reason, that's a more relaxing environment. So thinking about
maybe the actual, I don't know, I've never smoked, so, but maybe actually smoking relaxes people, so they're feeling more relaxed as well.
Yeah. So I think thinking about so one of the things I talk about is a different topic than we're talking about today, but I do a whole talk about having better meetings. But one of the things is think about any meeting you have as a dinner party. In other words, you're the host. How are you going to make people feel comfortable when they come in? How, where are they going to sit? What, have you thought about whether they prefer tea or, I mean, just these little things.
Interesting.
You are the host of your meeting. Even if it's a face-to-face meeting, treat someone as if you were inviting them into your home.
Yeah, it's definitely a whole different mindset you're approaching that with. I'm just imagining it now. It's a dinner party. It's a dinner party.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we've got coming in here. We've got Linda F60. I wonder if she's got a Ferrari F60. A difficult conversation is about asking for fees. What do you make of that one then?
Yeah, well, that's a negotiation, isn't it, really? And again, it's the same principles. You're trying to work out not whether I'm right or wrong in what the fees I'm asking for, but what's the value exchange? What is it that I need? What is it that you need from me? Let's explore that. So having that foundational conversation before you get to the, this is what I want. And, it's okay, what's the value exchange? What do you really need? And what can I offer? And what can I add to that? And, get that listening going. I think that helps before you get to the crunch point. And then it's a no-brainer.
Big takeaway point, isn't it? The importance of listening in all of this. So we've got Kirsty Hall. She's making a really good point here. So focus on your breathing while having the conversation. It will help you stay calm. I mean, calmness is surely really important in all of this.
It is. Yeah, staying calm. It's strangely one of the pieces of feedback that I've had from the work that I do is that I bring a sense of calm. And I think it is really important that you think about that. How do you keep yourself calm? How do you keep people calm? What if people aren't calm? Do you take a break? Do you, it is about managing your emotions as much as it is about managing the topic you're talking about.
Well, we've got two more comments. I'm going to come to both of them. Absolutely. This is Tony Mazzotti. Not wanting to upset others is also very British. Then there's a few sort of faces. Is that an excuse, though? Is that, do we use that as an excuse?
No, I don't think it's an excuse. I think we do use it as an excuse, but I don't think it should be an excuse. I think we should have the courage to say what we want to say what we need to say, but think about how we're going to say it.
How do we get the courage?
You get the courage by having the skills. So if you are confident that you have got the skills and the mindset to do this, then you've got the courage. If you're not sure that you're going to tread on someone's toes, make things worse, then you don't have the courage. You have the courage because you know that you've built up the muscle to do it.
And just to put us all out of our miseries, Linda does have a red Ferrari.
Good for you, Linda. Well done.
We want to see it, Linda. Yeah, give her a picture. That's pretty cool. She comes on every week as well, by the way, Linda. Clearly. So if you've got the skills to deal with it, that is what gives you the courage. So what are the skills then? So we've already mentioned listening. That's a skill. Is calmness a skill?
That's part more of the mindset, I would think. It is a skill as well, isn't it? I mean, it's partly a skill in knowing how to calm your mind, but it is also thinking about what mindset do I need to be in? I need to be in a mindset of being prepared to listen to others, not
maybe that's a skill. Is that a skill that we can develop, the plan of dealing with it?
Yeah, I think every organization should have a simple plan which says when we get to this stage, this is what we do. So ideally, a plan would look like, one of the key principles of mediation, of resolving conflict, is self-determination. It's up to us. We shouldn't be escalating something up to our boss to go, I've got a problem, you solve it, or throwing it out to the legal department. It's up to us to say, as far as possible, as far as we possibly can, we have the skills and tools to resolve this. We've built them into our business. We know what to do next. We can press the red button and we know where to go. And that then should be a face-to-face conversation. If we can't have that conversation between the two of us, who should we bring into the middle to facilitate it? So having that as a plan, so we know that we've got 5 facilitators who've had some training in this, who could come in internally and help facilitate difficult situations. If that doesn't work, what next? What's the next step? How long do you leave it before you take the next step? The next step then is, you know, maybe we do involve somebody more senior. Maybe you bring someone in like me from outside. Maybe you bring in some team training on conflict resolution. But you know that all these steps are available to you. And you know, once you've pressed the red button, you've got to know where are you going? What options are available to you? And
well, you've got to press that red button as soon as you can.
You've got to press the red button first.
And step the interactions.
And so then, yeah, listening's part of it, but it's saying, so where is it we're trying to get to? What's the outcome we're trying to get to? What then are some of the options for getting us there? What are the criteria that we need to think through? So a lot of this is about values, which I know from your coaching, perspective would be important. What are the core values? Now, again, a lot of organizations haven't done enough work on what their core values are. In other words, how do those translate into behavior? And what do we expect of people as a result of those core values? And how does that take us to an outcome that is something that we can all live with? And the outcome isn't necessarily always rosy and lovely. It isn't, we're all back living together and working together. Sometimes it's one person realizes they don't fit or they've got to move on. But if you can do that in a way that is harmonious, if you like. I've been working with some clients recently and they are separating a partnership and they've said, we want to do it with ease and grace. With ease and grace. And so they're able to do that with my intervention rather than fighting about how do we divide the business. We're doing it with ease and grace.
So nice 2 words there, by the way. They're so descriptive and they set the whole tone for the resolution, don't they, so well. We want to do it with ease and grace. We want this to be the smoothest journey we've ever been on.
Yeah.
Talk about setting your mindset for a good outcome. There's a couple of points here I want to acknowledge. Rachel Woods, George Lakoff says, change the metaphor. So instead of going to war with someone, say you are going to dance with someone.
Oh, I like that. I like that for a number of reasons there, Rachel. I love to dance.
What's your favorite dance?
Oh, Sarok.
Oh, there you go.
And also reeling, Scottish reeling. I do both.
I like a bit of salsa.
Salsa, yeah, I can do salsa too.
All right, we've got another point here from Mike Greenwood. It's a question as well. I'm a great believer that we need to be honest and open, but how is best to start the conversation, as it sometimes may come across as being criticism? So true.
Yeah, so true, so easy. I mean, I do this myself. It is really easy for what you say to be interpreted as criticism. So I think it's just important to think how you start that off. One of the most important things to share is my reason and intent. The reason I want to have this conversation and the where I want to get to. So this is important to me because rather than I'm criticizing you and again, getting someone to share what's important to you about having this conversation. But I think if you can frame the conversation as I'd like to have a conversation with you about X, the reason I'd like to do that is this. And, it may come as a surprise to them, or they may say, well, I'd like to have a conversation. Is there something you'd like to share if we have a conversation? Is there something you'd like to add to that conversation?
Look, you've just got to start having the conversations. And like you said, it takes courage to do so.
Yeah.
One of the next slides is, it's threats. So is this really conflict?
Yeah. So that's a bit, I mean, again, people may have some examples, but that's a bit further down the escalator. So it might be that someone's sending very long emails that are, difficult or aggressive, or their behavior is being interpreted as bullying or aggressive. So you've got to that stage. And again, sometimes it's an interpretation of behavior. But how do you deal with it? If somebody feels that is exactly the situation where somebody might just go off sick because they would become very stressed by behavior that they perceived as threatening or bullying or aggressive. But I've certainly had examples of just someone sending you, very long 3-page emails. And of course, if you do that and don't have a conversation, you've got to reply to the email, haven't you? So it's adding another layer to your work every day, or however often you receive it. So yeah.
Does it ever go the other way, where some people like get accused of being threatening when they've not meant to, or being bullying? Because I do see those words being used, in people in business. Threat,
Yes.
bullying.
Yeah.
Does it ever get?
No, I think you're right, actually, James. I think that some people are using those terms as sometimes as an excuse, or
Yeah.
I think that's right.
How
And
do you deal with that? Let's say
same with,
there's a
well,
manager then who's being accused of bullying. How do
mm,
they deal with that?
well, the ideal way to deal with it, again, would probably be to have a third party intervening in that, because the conversation quite clearly between two people there would have broken down, or there might be more involved. But sometimes the person doesn't understand the impact of their behavior, or in fact, it's being misinterpreted deliberately, perhaps, potentially in some situations. So it is a question of having that conversation, I think, possibly with someone who is trained in mediating or intervening or facilitating in those circumstances, to explore, what was said. How did you interpret it? How did what did you say? Trying to find a way through. And when I've dealt with those kind of situations, it's about then thinking, so what would you like to change? What would you like to do differently? What would you like this person to do differently? What would they like you to do differently? How would you change the interaction? And then you can see if somebody's willing to change and wanting to change. But often both people have got to change. It isn't just one-sided.
You know what's springing to mind here as you're saying that is sometimes this tension and conflict just goes on too long.
Yeah, it does.
It's like just get. I'm imagining a scenario for me. I just wish I'd have got the mediation in much sooner. No need to go through all of this pain. There's a lose-lose scenario happening here.
Mm, mm.
You got to be quick to spot it and react and respond there.
Yeah. And it is that awareness, it's, accept, acknowledge, and actively manage, I call it.
Well, look, there's a couple of Andrew Jameson says it happens in the voluntary sector too, actually. This
It does, absolutely.
Wow.
Sure. Yeah, in the voluntary sector, in the healthcare sector, really the healthcare sector I've worked a lot in, the NHS, is because of the other pressures they're under, huge problems around conflict in departments, between members of the public and practitioners. So many issues. But definitely,
We've got a question for you here from Linda Ferrari F60, and then we've got a couple of questions for you again, team. So get ready. So, how do you know when is the right time to have the conversation?
I think the right time to have the conversation is when when you think that it would make a difference. And I don't think there's a wrong time to have the conversation. I think there's a right time and space to have the conversation, if you like. So sometimes having it in the immediate moment, somebody upsets you in the middle of a board meeting, and you have sometimes it's appropriate to say, leave it till later, or could I have a word with you later? So it's important to think about, when would I have that conversation? I'm going to have the conversation pretty soon, but what time would it be, and where will we have that? As we talked about before, don't have a conversation in a place where you're embarrassing your colleague in front of others. If you're making someone look small in front of you're never going to win. You want to take it in.
We know the risk that of
Well,
behaviors. Yeah. Well, look, I
yeah.
mean, one thing that's springing to mind there is, as you're actually saying that, it's like sometimes in the moment, I've learned over time that I'm quite a reflective thinker, and sometimes just a little bit of reflection or a 5-minute walk just gathers your thoughts, and instead of something being so impulsive in the moment,
Yeah.
you're calculated, you're deliberate, you're calm.
Yeah.
I'm calm, and I mean, it's an example for me. I mean, how important is a little bit of space to consider?
I think it's really important. I think all of us can be very hot-headed. We can say things in the heat of the moment. We've just got to think about, let's take a deep breath. As somebody said earlier, breathing is important. Take a deep breath. Think about, I do need to say something about this, but maybe not now, maybe later. Maybe I send someone an email or a message and say, can we have a chat? I'd like to have a chat with you about something.
Well, you've got a couple more questions here that we're going to ask. Do people feel unsafe, manipulated, or bullied? Is that a question that we're asked, or are we going to deal with these questions now?
No, well, these are just questions for people to reflect on. So if they're thinking about, am I at that stage of the escalator? It would be, do I think that there may be people who feel unsafe, manipulated, or bullied in the organization? Have threats been made or action taken? And has a formal process been started? This is the problem. The formal process is often started, certainly before I get involved. And I wish it wasn't. I wish people had called me in before they'd hired the lawyers or filed the grievance or whatever. It would make my job much easier.
There's different levels of formal process, isn't there? But I bet there's a procrastination over starting a process as well with fear, because
Yes.
sometimes there's performance related formal processes, aren't there? Which is a confrontation.
Yes.
And I see that in small businesses all the time, especially where there's a relationship or like a family, like you start.
Yeah.
You're managing a family member and they're underperforming, and now you've got to start a formal process of performance with them.
That's right.
That's emotionally quite challenging.
It's always very challenging because you are, one of the things that triggers us as human beings most is if someone makes us feel less than good about ourselves, less than effective at our job, whatever, less than them in terms of status or title. We are very, very easily triggered by that sense, that partly because most of us feel we are less than good, less than we could be. But if that is then reinforced by something someone says to you, you're immediately going to become defensive.
Such a powerful state. I just wanted to acknowledge that. I mean, awareness, if you're the manager or if you're the person dealing, you be very aware of that. I mean, that's emotional intelligence, to be aware if you are communicating, conversing in some way, shape, or form, and it's making people feel less than. Got a question here from Tony Mazzotti as well. Would you agree that personal development and improving emotional intelligence makes conflict less likely? Personal development.
I think it is for us, for all of us, and that's why I run my course on mediation for people who don't want to be mediators. It's about that awareness. What is my awareness of myself? And only by understanding myself can I then imagine what you might be going through. If I've done the work myself, if I've better understood myself, if I've better understood my own reactions to conflict, then I will understand where you might be coming from and what might trigger you. If I haven't done that work, I'll be completely puzzled by it all.
Well, look, this has been amazing so far. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left, folks. So the next thing just to acknowledge is the abyss there. Look at that for a picture that you've created.
Your final destination.
Remember that movie, The Final Destination? There you go. That was,
that's it. So this is, so many people are teetering on the edge of the abyss. And I wonder what that looks like for people. What is it we risk? What do we risk? What does falling into the abyss look like?
Burnout. Yeah, like I'm trying to answer your question here. I'm trying to put myself over there. I've got conflict going on. I've not got conflict going on. I've not had these conversations. I'm on the edge now. It's just like giving up, apathy, lack of resilience, burnout. Is that what it is on the abyss then?
And what do we risk losing? So we might risk, an organization might risk losing everything. You know, that I have seen organizations that have risked losing the whole organization. You know, the whole thing is going to implode because they didn't deal with something earlier.
Because they didn't have a conversation, or they didn't have it well.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you know, I've seen people lose key members of their team right before Christmas. So a small business couldn't get their Christmas orders out, for example. You know, these in small businesses, but even in larger businesses, it can be.
I wonder if that's a red herring, though. Sometimes, you know, if that's an excuse, they've wanted to part ways before that point.
Possibly, but you know, again, the earlier you deal with it, the better. The more, you know, if you let someone take you to the edge of the abyss and hold your head over it and say,
what's the take-home message here? That's what it is. It's stop the escalator, press the button, and start stepping the interaction.
Yeah, and so there I've just put under the red button, know what the problem is, think about what outcome you want, what are your options, and then the consequences bit is so important. What if I do, and what if I don't? What if I do take some action now? What if I don't take? That's the key question, really. Timing is everything, as somebody asked us, but what if I do and what if I don't? Think about the consequences.
Well, I think we're almost towards the end. So start sharing us your learning points, your action points in here. I'm going to be sharing with you who we've got coming up next week. Barefoot Mediation, Jane Gunn. I do think we do have contact details coming up as well. Maybe Max can put them on screen as well. You've got a video that people can have access to free of charge just there. Max will put your email address up in a second. Give us your learning points. Give us your action points. I'm going to now share with you who you've got to look forward to next week. Who have we got, Wolves? Next week, we've got Ksenia Toomey. Who is she? Well, she is a mover and shaker. She is the queen of mindset. She has got a book called Empower Yourself, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be an empowering session. She's 35-year-old. She's accomplished great things. She has a following online of 12 million people. She knows what to do to increase your presence, to become successful in all walks of life. Thank you very much, Max. And let's see what we've got coming in terms of the lessons from today. A fascinating session. Many thank you. I think my biggest learning is it's probably several. Listening. The other one is all those conversations that you're not having, that you probably know you should be. That could cause conflict. Be aware of that.
Yeah.
And what are the other people feeling like when you're not actually speaking to them? So crucial. Jane at janegunn.co.uk if you want those details. I love the 2 mantras. Repeat the 2 mantras for us, Jane.
Whatever is unspoken is hardest to change, and we speak least about the things that matter most. So there's my 2 mantras. And if anybody's interested in learning more, I do have this course, Barefoot Mediation, which takes you through the process to be a barefoot mediator, if you like.
And Mike Greenwood, Mr. Greenwood, problem.
Oh, there we go.
Outcome, consequences.
Primarily listen.
Yes, primarily listen.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. What have you enjoyed most about today, Jane?
It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed the feedback too. I think I can't see everybody, but thank you very much for everybody for being engaging and fun to work with. It's definitely a big Friday finish for me. So I've enjoyed it very much and enjoyed chatting with you, James. So I think, our conversation has been a good one.
It has been a good one. We've all learned some good stuff. And guess what we've got to do now? We've got to go into the weekend and celebrate in style. Enjoy yourselves this evening, folks. See you next week. Apply the learnings and go and deal with that conflict. Bye for now.